How's it going, boys? Johnny Superbman here, and it's time for our third season of our NHL 13 GM mode commentaries. That's right. We've already done two so far. We started off with the Calgary Flames. We just finished the Washington Capitals, and now it's time to move on to our third team. Now, we're going to keep the same pattern going where we switch conferences. We started off in the West. We just did the East. We're going to go back to the Western Conference this time, all right? I've narrowed it down to 3 teams for you guys. We're going to get to that in a second, but before we do, here are the rules that I've come up with for the next GM mode, alright? Not too many here, but there's a few new ones that I put in there that I want to show you guys. First things first, we're going to do 6 years once again. I really like the length of the Washington Capital GM mode commentary. 5 years, I think, can be a little bit too quick. 7 years, 8 years is a little bit too long. 6 years is the perfect amount where you can see the young guys who you drafted in the first 3 years getting better. Some older guys who you start off with in year 1 are getting to the point where they got to retire. So 6 years is pretty nice, but we're going to set it up for 25 years once again so that you guys can decide that we can go to year 7, we can go to year 8, or when we're done, we can do the same thing that like we did in Washington where we just traded away Ovechkin and Backstrom. We can do that same thing again, just have some fun, all right? So I'm going to set it up for 25 years, but the minimum year length that we're going to do in this GM mode is 6 years, all right? Same as Washington. Next, we're going to turn waivers off again. I really like having the waivers off, all right? Waivers to me kind of ruins the game, especially when you see guys like Jeff Skinner, Sidney Crosby being dropped to waivers. So we're going to turn waivers off. We're going to turn injuries off once again during the regular season, but during the playoffs, the injuries go back on. I like that combination just so we can get through the regular season a bit quicker. But during the playoffs, we'll turn injuries back on, okay? Here's the new rule. Trades, I can only make trades only through the trading block, all right? So I can only use the trading block to make a trade. I can do this by putting my own players up in the trading block or searching for other players that are listed, all right? So in other words, I cannot make any trades that to other teams that other teams don't want to give up, all right? So say, for example, you see Pavel Datsyuk. If his name is in white, I'm not allowed to go for that trade. They don't want to give him up. So no matter what I do, I'm not allowed to ask for another player unless they're willing to give him up. Now, if the other team comes at me with a trade, I'm allowed to decline it and then send it back with my own little combination. That's fine. That's using the trading block, all right? But I'm not just randomly allowed to go out on any single day and get any random player that I want. Has to be a player that they're willing to give up, all right? Same thing with the draft pick, anything like that. Has to be a player that they're willing to give up, unless I'm at the draft or the trade deadline. At the draft or the trade deadline where I have to use my cell phones, I can do any trade I want. The sky's the limit, all right? It's just because I have a time limit, basically. So during the regular mode, the regular season, I have to only make trades on players or draft picks that the other team is willing to give up, and I can do any kind of trade that I want during the draft or the trade deadline, all right? So there's the new trades or the new rules for trades. If you guys have any opinions on how I can tweak it a little bit better, make it a little bit tougher so I can't just trade the whole team away in year 1, let me know, all right? The next rule, another new rule, unsigned players can't be traded. A lot of the times, especially when you start up, you have a few players that are like 2.5 star, 3 star players, and they actually have some trade value. If you tie like 2 or 3 of them together, you can usually get like a first round pick or something like that. For this whole 6 years, at least, whatever it is, if I have an unsigned rookie, I'm not allowed to trade him, all right? I have to just leave him on my team until he goes to free agency, okay? Or I can sign him and then trade him, all right? Get him to a minor league contract, but I cannot trade unsigned rookies, all right? That goes for any year in the GM mode. Cannot trade unsigned players, all right? And another rule, this only goes for year 1. No free agent signings in year 1. Every time when you start up in GM mode, there's always those 3.5 star rookies out there. You know, there's Tim Connolly out there, Gilbert Roulet, players like that, Cal or Cam O'Reilly or something like that. I'm in year 1, only the year 1 free agency, I'm not allowed to sign any players. Come year 2, I'm allowed to do whatever I want in free agency. But the year 1, when I started off, before I start the simulation, I'm not allowed to use free agency for anything, all right? So, there's the new rules. Now we're going to get to the point where I know you guys really want to see. Which teams are we going to be able to choose for the next GM mode commentary? So, I've dwindled it down to only 3 choices for you guys. I kind of got the sense from the last GM mode commentary in the comments that you guys wanted to see a older rebuilding team. Kind of a team where you still want to win the cup, but you're not completely ready to just sell the team, alright? So I've come up with 3 teams here. First, you got the San Jose Sharks, alright? What do? You got Patrick Marleau, Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski even still, Dan Boyle. You got a lot of older players on that team, but they're still clearly trying to win the cup with that roster, right? So that'd be a kind of a cool team to try and hold on to those players and to win the cup while not really giving up draft picks, because you have to use those draft picks because eventually those guys are going to retire, right? So the San Jose Sharks, that'd be a good team. The second team, Detroit Red Wings, basically the same thing as the San Jose Sharks. They got older guys like Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk, all right? And they're still trying to make the playoffs. They're still trying to win the Stanley Cup. So exact same thing as the San Jose Sharks. Basically, you just have to choose which team you want. And then the third choice is the Vancouver Canucks. That's right. You can make the argument they're in the same kind of position with Daniel and Henrik Sedin. They're in their mid-30s, all right? They do have a younger center in Ryan Kessler, which would be nice, but really no forward or defensive prospects. They have a few 4-star potential players, but no 4.5-star stud players coming up, you know what I mean? And the good old question, Luongo or Schneider, right? So that'd be a nice problem that GM Superbman would have to deal with, right? What do you do with the Sedins, and what do you do with the goaltending problem in Vancouver? And again, try to win the Stanley Cup while still not sacrificing the future, right? So there you go, boys. There's the 3 choices for you guys for the next GM mode. In the bottom, I'm going to have 3 comments. Look for my 3 comments. They should be the first 3 comments on the page. Thumbs up the one that you want, and within a few days, I'm going to come back to this video, check out which team has the most votes, and we'll start the next GM mode commentary up from there, alright? I don't know when I'm going to come back and check it. It'll probably be in a day or 2. So whenever I see the votes, that's just the team I'm going to go with. Alright, boys, so I look forward to seeing you guys from the Western Conference in our next NHL 13 GM mode commentary. See you guys there.